Guys, it's Miss Pruitt, and as promised, I am making a video to try to help you guys with our notes that we were taking in class today. Let's go ahead and jump right on in, starting with number 11 from our notes today. Remember, if they're negative, if I have an exponent that's negative, being negative, we want to make him happy or positive by putting him on the right side of the fraction line. So in this case, my fraction line, I have x to the negative 2 power, so I'm going to make him positive because he's being negative up there on the top. Now he's happy. He's positive, right? See? There's a smiley face. I'm also going to move up x cubed. That was negative when he was in my denominator. Now he's in the numerator. He's positive. I leave y cubed at the top. He's already positive. I'm not going to mess with him. I'm going to leave y squared that's already positive in my denominator. And I'm going to move z to the first power down to my denominator to make him happy. All right, so now using our laws of exponents, we're going to clear this up or clean it up. So if I have x cubed and in my numerator and I have x squared in my denominator, you're supposed to subtract the exponents, which means this will be x to the 3 minus 2. Well, x to the 3 minus 2 is simply x to the first power since it's positive. He goes up here in my numerator. And we're going to do the same thing with the y. Since I have a y in my numerator and my denominator, I'm going to do y cubed minus 2. Well, y cubed minus 2 is simply y to the first power. And 1 is positive. So he's going to go in my numerator. Now I only did the x's and the y's like this because they had a value that was in the numerator and the denominator. But look at z. Z is chilling. He's in the denominator. He's already happy. I'm not going to bother him. I'm going to leave him in my denominator nice and happy, and that's our final answer for that one. All right, for this problem, I am going to, well, whenever you have anything outside of a parentheses, you need to distribute. So I'm going to distribute here, here, and then you'll see me distribute there. So if I'm distributing, that means I'm multiplying. So I'm going to take the term that I am distributing, which is 3 times y to the negative third power, and I am going to multiply it times that first term, plus, again, take the term that I'm distributing and multiply it by the next term. And last but not least, take the thing that you're distributing, 3y to the negative third power, and I'm going to multiply it by that last term. Now let's try to clean everything up. Well, starting over here, 3 times 2 is 6. I have x that has a negative exponent, and I have y that has a negative exponent, so they're both going to go into the denominator where they're nice and happy. Now let's look at the next term. First, it's positive, and I have 3 times my invisible 1, right? So I know I'm going to have a 3, and he's definitely going to be in my numerator. And I also have x. There is no term there's no variable that's being multiplied by x. But look at my y's. I have y to the negative third power times y to the first power. When you're multiplying, you're supposed to add the exponents. So that would mean I would have y to the negative third power plus 1. Well, negative 3 plus 1 is simply negative 2. So since it's negative, it would go right dead smack into my denominator. And let's do the final term. Again, I have 3, and it's going to be times my invisible 1 there. So there's going to be 3 in my numerator. Look at my exponents. I have negative 3, and I have 2, and they both have y's as bases. So I'm going to add those two together. It's going to be y to the negative 3 plus 2. Well, negative 3 plus 2 is simply negative 1. So, since it's negative, he is going to go into my denominator. And I think in class we did not simplify this. You can leave it simply like so. Next. Well, this one's pretty straightforward. I'm going to leave 4 and x cubed in my numerator, or leave them a b because they're nice and positive. But that y to negative 6, I'm going to move that y to the 6th power to my denominator. Now, for the next term, I have negative 3, and you have an exponent on the outside. I want to distribute it to every variable that's on the inside. So this is going to become x to the negative 1 to the negative 3rd power times y squared. Wrong way. To the negative 3rd power. Well, what are you supposed to do if you have an exponent raised to another exponent? Of course, you are supposed to multiply. So this would end up being, well, negative 1 times negative 3 would be positive 3. So my exponent will stay 3, and it will be up in my numerator. Look at the next variable, though. It'll have y with 2 times negative 3. Well, 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. And since it's negative, it will go in my denominator. And as I'm looking, I see that I have a common denominator between these two. Whenever you have a common denominator, you move that denominator over and you add the numerators. Well, I have 4x cubed plus 1x cubed. Like terms, so this becomes 5x cubed divided by y to the 6th power. And that's the answer. Alright, next. So, for this one, what I want you guys to notice that's slightly different is that there's an operation going on in my numerator and my denominator, and that operation is subtraction. So whenever we have subtraction or addition going on, there's some other steps that we need to do or things we need to take into consideration. For my numerator, it's like I can't move this term. It's like that operation is binding and bonding these two terms together. That subtraction is binding these two terms together. I cannot separate them. I'm going to have to deal with it. So we're going to look at just the numerator and then just the denominator, and then see how we can combine the two. So looking at my numerator only, I see I have x to the negative 2 power. Since he's negative, I know that he's not going to be happy until he's on the other side of the fraction line. Minus, and then I have x squared. He's fine, dandy, and happy. He's already positive, so he's going to stay in the numerator of my numerator. So keep in mind, we just did the top portion. Now we have to look at the bottom. Again, I have x to the negative 1, so I need to make him positive. And he's only going to be positive if he's on the other side of the fraction line. Yes, I have a bunch of fractions within a fraction, but it's okay. Look at the next term in that denominator. It's x. He's already positive, so he's up there and he is chilling. So we need to find a common denominator for my numerator and for my denominator. So the easiest way to find a common denominator is look at the denominators that you have, simply multiply them together. Well, whatever you do to the new denominator, you're going to also have to do to the numerator. And here's what I mean. So if I were to multiply x squared and 1 together, I'm going to do it right here. So I'm going to be multiplying by 1, but whatever I do to the denominator, I need to do it to the numerator. And on that side, I need to multiply by x squared. Whatever I do to the denominator, I need to also do to the numerator. So let's go ahead and go down to the denominator and do the same thing. I'm going to be multiplying these two guys together. So even though this part is redundant, it might be helpful just to practice to do this part. But I'm going to be multiplying by 1. Well, whatever I do to the bottom, I need to also do to the top. And on this side, we're going to be multiplying by the other term in my denominator, which is X. Whatever I do to the bottom, I need to also do to the top. So now let's do the multiplication for all 4 of these terms. Well, 1 times 1 would be 1. X squared times 1 is x squared. Minus, well, x squared times x squared is x to the 4th, divided by 1 times x squared, which is x squared, divided by, let's do it again, 1 times 1 for x, minus x squared over x. Now that I have common denominators, I can now combine the numerators. So I'll have 1 minus x to the 4th over x squared, divided by 1 minus x squared, divided by x. What are you supposed to do when you have a fraction divided by a fraction? Keep, change, flip. Right? Absolutely. I'm actually going to erase some of this stuff. So I'm running out of room. Let me arrange my keep, change, flip. And I'm going to change that to multiplication. I'm going to flip this. So that means I'm going to have 1 minus x to the 4th divided by x squared. I'm going to change that division to multiplication. I'm going to flip my denominator. Well, let's see. I notice that this dude right here is a difference of squares. So I'm going to factor. Using my rules of difference of squares, this will become 1 minus x squared. Uh-oh. There is no way. I'm totally going to run out of room. So let me erase some of this stuff. There we go, much better. So I am going to factor this. One's going to be plus, one's going to be minus. Now you take the square root of the first term, where the square root of 1 is 1. I put that dude here and that dude there. What would the square root of x to the 4th be? Squared and x squared. So what I really have is 1 plus x squared times 1 minus x squared. Sorry, you guys, that's squared. Boom, just like that. Divided by x squared times x over 1 minus x squared. Well, what do you notice? I notice that that dude cancels out with that dude. I see that that dude takes one of those dudes away, and what I'm left with is 1 plus x squared divided by x. So for the sake of time, I am going to split up the next couple of problems in another video so you can check it out if you like.